Good morning, Service Alliance community. How you doing? What's up, Justin?
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Bright and early.
What's up, guys? How's everybody doing this morning? I started off early this morning. I apologize. I'm in my truck. I had a install to get ready for this morning before I start my service calls. So I'm already out and about.
Already out, and early bird gets the worm. Alex Hand,
Amen,
how you doing? Adam, how you doing?
Morning, Adam.
Got some guys already popping in. You're not the only one up early.
I've seen a few Adam's posts. He's a newer guy to the group, isn't he?
No, he's been around a little while.
Is he?
Yeah, I'm still getting to know a lot of the guys in the community here and there. Seeing names pop up all the time on the live streams.
It's crazy, man. To think that we started this this Facebook group started roughly 3 years ago now, close to 3 years.
Yeah, close to it. Yeah.
And it's like, it's just crazy the amount of support, and like, I love when these new guys come in the group and, you see, man, I've been looking for this. I've been in the industry a while, and this is exactly what I was looking for, to get some support. That's why we did it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Morning, Saul. How's everybody doing? Adam's been up since 3.
So I still got to hit you up about my account, brother.
You got a what?
I got to hit Saul up about my Marcone account.
Lean on your rep, right?
Amen. I like that saying, man.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I love the fact that reps are coming out and like showing support in just our industry. I've been doing this 25 years. It was like, you'd lucky if you saw your rep once every couple years back then. Like they had so many guys out here doing this for a living back 25 years ago. They weren't out here trying to help a brother out, and these guys are awesome, dude. They have changed my entire opinion of the part suppliers.
Oh yeah.
And they're really trying to
things have changed
the industry, and I love it.
It was probably easy money back then. They didn't have to do it as much now as they do now, right?
Yeah, I mean, dude, just to be transparent, I had uncles that could barely read and write. I had an uncle that wrote a receipt on the back of a Snickers wrapper one time. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. He was so, and he's passed on. But my family would joke. We joke about this all the time. I mean, he actually, I was in a service call with him one time. He actually called a start capacitor a flux capacitor. He's also the same guy that sat down at somebody's kitchen table and pulled their turkey out 2 days after Thanksgiving and made himself a turkey sandwich and looks at me dead straight in the face and says, you want a sandwich too?" I was like, "Dude, you're crazy, man." I mean, that's, I had such a wide range of family members that did this for a living, like super successful, driving a Porsche at 28. And then I had an Uncle Larry. Everybody's got that Uncle Larry.
Yep.
And he was a nut job, but he was also a really fun guy to be around.
They usually are. The nuttiest ones usually are the most fun for a while.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And there's like 10 members of my family in this group, so they're probably going to be laughing their ass off if they see this video.
Yeah.
Me talking about Larry back in the day.
Talking about the family.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've promised to keep some things, tight to the vest in family conversations, but as far as helping people and teaching about the industry and passing along what's been given to me through 3 generations, it's all free reign, brother. At this point, most of my family members are getting close to retirement age that are doing this. And the younger generation, like myself in our family, these guys are all doing really well. I got a cousin that's got a huge company in Hawaii, one in Oklahoma City, one in Atlanta, one in Wichita, one in Indianapolis. God, the list goes on and on, dude. It's crazy.
That's awesome. Let me pray us in.
All right.
If you're joining us for the first time, this is what we do. We pray every morning, and we pray for you, pray for what's going on out there. So let's get going. Dear precious Lord, I want to thank you for each and every person watching this video. I want to pray for each and every service member out there in our community and keep them safe. Keep us all safe throughout our day. Let us be fruitful throughout our day. Let us be efficient throughout our day. Please give us the wisdom and the knowledge to know the difference between what the world wants versus your plan for us. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right. I've got a Bible verse that's been on my mind for quite a few days now. And talking a little bit about brotherhood and how we help each other. I love it when community gets together, help each other out, and you just kind of help take care of each other. And let me pop it up here. Today I want to read Luke 6 verse 42. It says, "How can you say to your brother, 'Brother, let me take out the speck that is in your eye,' when you yourself do not see the log that is in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, and then you'll see clearly to take the speck that's in your brother's eye." That's a profound verse right there. A lot of times we look at other people and we say, man, these guys must have been total noobs. They don't know what they're doing. Maybe you followed behind another tech and you're like, I don't know. These guys are total idiots, and I don't know. I guess it's you were there once too. We've all been there. Anybody can pick apart anybody else's work. And yes, it doesn't mean that somebody that does shoddy work should be doing shoddy work,
Absolutely.
and that you are better than them. It means you've had more time to learn and you've made those mistakes. Guaranteed. We've all made those mistakes, in our
Absolutely.
learning and all that stuff. So, um I think it was TK maybe mentioned one time that he went after a tech, saw some subpar work that he had done, and TK ran down that tech to
I
actually
remember
teach
this.
him what he did wrong on that
Yeah.
job. And I think that when I heard that, I was like, wow, that's going really above and beyond, not only to help your fellow man, but to help somebody that doesn't even work for you, who's your competition. And now you just
One,
help them.
and I'll say this, I've talked to guys every day in this group, either through private messenger, Zoom calls. I got a, Zoom call set up with Urban Brothers with TK uh, here coming up. And TK is unique, man. There's something magical about that guy from personality standpoint from the first time I met him in person in Chicago. For him to, just how he is with the guys in his area, for instance, he talks about like, dude, I'm willing to help anybody. There's more than enough work out here. And people say that all the time. But just like you're saying right there, that's a prime example of like really putting the best foot forward always. And he's a big reason why I'm a part of this because I believed in exactly what he believed. He's different, guys. He really is. The person you see on camera, the genuine realness is exactly who he is in person.
Oh, absolutely.
Times 10. I mean,
Yeah.
um, and I'm not doing this to sorry TK to throw you out there, brother, but it really is different. And I'd say the same thing for EJ. EJ is genuine as it gets. I mean, um, to see guys like that be successful in our industry while doing so many things for their community and other people, it doesn't get any better for me.
Saul said that's a deep verse.
Yeah, and
Saul
dude, when I
must have been a hypocrite lately. It's speaking to him.
you know I think about back when I was learning this job, and I'll be transparent with you guys. Obviously, I have a uh, serious disability on the left side of my body. Cerebral palsy was a birth injury. I have very limited use of my left hand, and I learned from my dad. And there actually was a moment when I was learning, my dad said, son, I don't know if this job's for you. And it lit a fire under me that never stopped because I was like, my own dad didn't believe I can do this. Um,
Then you get into
I have a
prove mode, right? You
oh
got to
yeah,
prove yourself.
and the problem is getting to the point where you're trying to prove yourself. First, I got to figure out how I'm going to do this one handed, damn near. And my uncle Paul, who's in this group, he's my biggest mentor in my life as far as from a business standpoint and beyond. Always said like he's like, dude, you can do this. Like you're just gonna have to figure out a different way. And you know, I'm walking, talking proof that anything's possible. I'm running a multi-million-dollar business, and every person that you know saw me in the very beginning never thought I would be able to fix a motor coupling on a Whirlpool washer. I mean, it's crazy. The power of the human spirit, man. And it was all
Yep.
because of that one comment. He probably doesn't even know that to this day. That
Yep.
one comment drove me for 10 years.
Oh yeah,
It,
I've had plenty
it
of
did.
those over the years. You know what? You don't believe in me? I'm gonna make you
Yeah,
believe in me. Or I'm gonna
absolutely.
pass you up trying. you know,
Yep.
is nothing puts a fire in your belly than being told you're gonna fail, right?
Yeah. Well, and
'Cause
if you look at that Bible verse you just read too, it's like it's a clear indication of it's really easy to judge others when you have perspective and experience. but you're not realizing all the things that you went through to get to that point. And
Exactly.
you know what I mean?
You know,
You
and I
forget
mean,
about all the times
you don't know somebody else's challenge and pain and what they've had to do to get where they are today. Just like
Absolutely.
you. You know, somebody could go behind you.
Hmm.
Maybe you had to do something differently than someone else, right?
Yep.
That has full function of all their limbs and
Yep.
fingers and everything, you know, and they're like, what the hell happened? Why'd this guy do this way? You know, whether it's right or wrong, whatever. Maybe it was just done differently, but
Yeah.
it's what you had to do. And if they don't know your story and your situation, how can they speak to that? You know,
Yeah.
so how can they put that down or challenge that? And that's our immediate go-to every single time when we see that. You know, it's like,
Absolutely.
you know what? Sometimes we need to take a step back and look at ourselves and where we came from and try to be a little bit more understanding. Yes, we can be confident in what we do, in our knowledge and our experience, but when it comes down to it, we can't be boastful. We can't be the type that brags all the dang time, and we can't be, you know, arrogant about it. And that's where we need to check ourselves all the time.
A-
And I'm
Absolutely.
I'm guilty of that too.
Well,
So,
and I'll say this, at this point in my career, with me training people every day, I just hired two more guys that I'm getting ready to start training. That humility, and the reason I'm so comfortable like talking about this now, it's now a blessing, because when I'm building my business and I have a guy in particular I'm thinking of right now. And Matt, I'm just pointing you out, brother, because you inspire me. There's a gentleman that works for me. His name's Matt. He was the most critical person of himself the entire time he was learning this trade, and he almost folded up a couple times, and he fought through it. And the one thing that I said to him when he really got tough is I looked at him and I said, "If I can do this, you can do this." And he's like, "You're right, dude." And I say that to every guy that comes in my company and has a hard time is, if I can do this, bro, you can do this. It's just you're being so hard on yourself in your expectations of where you should be at, because you're comparing yourself to others. Everybody learns differently. My number one guy in this company took the longest time to grasp this job, and now he's the best because he just is a grinder. You know what I mean? So what does it matter if the end result is where he's at? He actually appreciates it more, I think, which is also
yeah.
what makes him good.
Sometimes the guys that take a little bit longer to figure something out
Mhm.
are usually the ones that once it clicks, they just freaking start screaming forward once it
Yeah,
clicks. You know, it's like once they get it and they get it deep down, you know, and then they just start moving forward and just applying that knowledge and experience, you know, to a lot of different things. And then they start figuring out more and more and more a little quicker. So
yeah,
it's like because they've gained their confidence, right? You know, and when you can't figure something out, it naturally gives you a confidence problem. So
yeah.
that slows you down from learning other things. But once you get that confidence and you start figuring some things out, you start moving forward. So
Absolutely. Well, and another thing, back to the verse you're talking about, and it came up when you were saying it, is, you know, when my company was growing, I had a huge problem with turnover and losing people over and over again that invested 5, 6 months into. At some point, you got to take a look in the mirror and say, "I'm the problem until I'm not the problem." Right? We say that all the time in
yep.
our little mastermind. Clearly, it's not the one person, the second person, the third person, the fourth person that came in my company and gave up. I'm doing something wrong here. Or it needs to be tweaked. And there's certain things that I did, which was I started cherry picking guys' calls early on to let them gain some confidence. I also started a, a chat group within my company so guys could help each other. Doing the two-man team thing, giving them support.
Hmm.
We didn't have support when I came into this. It was sink or swim mode. And the truth of the matter is, the machines are completely different than guys like me that have been doing this 25 years. If I had to be put in that situation in sink or swim mode with these machines, I'd quit too. 100% if I'm being honest with myself.
Well,
They're
I
just,
mean, if you really think about it, people don't leave jobs; they quit managers.
mm,
That's who they leave. And if those managers and whether it's the owner of the company or a supervisor, they their job, your job as an owner is to serve your employees, whether you like it or not, and take that for what it is. You have to serve your employees as a servant, which means you have to provide them everything that they need to do their job successfully. And that
mm,
includes, whether it's tools, training, just mental support, with different things. You don't have to be best friends with them. You're still
yeah,
their boss, they're still your employee. And there's a little bit of a fine line between, friendship and employment, at some point. And you still have to kind of walk that fine line in a lot of
yeah.
cases. And I've always struggled with that. But bottom line is you've got to serve your team. So it's funny that
Absolutely.
you mentioned, Back to the Future, because I wanted to talk about, the future today. So let's talk about the future of us driving DeLoreans as service vehicles. you know
Did,
maybe
did you
maybe we'll
see
have
in Japan?
time machines,
Was it in Japan they just had the first flying cars? That you're now gonna have to have like it's a license for your car, but you also have to have a special license. Have you seen it yet?
I've
It's
seen
like
that.
it's like a big oh my gosh, drone. It's like
Yeah,
a huge drone.
right.
It's wild. It's
Yeah, I've seen them.
wild to think
They've
that
got them
like
here in the States too. I mean, it's
yeah,
nothing new. People have been trying to do that for years and years, decades actually.
yeah,
But now the proofs of concept are starting to come out. So, um let's talk about the future of our service vehicles. This is something that's been on my mind for a while. With the push for everything to go electric vehicle. And, California passed some laws recently to where in 10 years they're saying it's going to be illegal for a dealership to sell a fuel powered vehicle,
yeah. New York
which
followed suit
it
too.
it I can't wrap my head around that, and I need to research this more. But if what this law actually does is what I think it does, where are all the fuel powered vehicles that are in California going to go? Because California has such strict emissions laws right now, and
Yeah,
they have for decades. Those vehicles have additional emissions, restrictions on them than most of the rest of the country. So those vehicles are going to flood into the rest of the country. So I
yeah,
see the used car market just being overwhelmed with the amount of volume of um product that they'd be able to sell, right? But as
yep,
that law starts moving from state to state to state, and obviously this is all going to depend on what's happening in our government and the House and Senate and all that stuff. Who's in there and who's not in there obviously drives a lot of this, right? So
absolutely.
when the House finally flips in November, hopefully, from what it is now, I don't know if it's going to slow that down or even matter, right?
So so I think California's got to the point where it's almost like its own country.
Yeah,
So I think irregardless of what administration's in office, California is going to keep doing what California does,
right.
which is they want to be the early adopter of everything, good, bad, or indifferent. They want to be They want the notary of it, in my
Hmm.
opinion. I mean, they're subsidizing these manufacturers to do this, to go green. They're giving them tax breaks. They're doing many subsidies to make this a reality. And if I was a manufacturer and you're going to pay me X amount of dollars to start building this type of car, heck yeah. You know what I mean? Um, so clearly they're going to do it, but I think it's going to be cool to see how they're going to deal with the infrastructure part of it. You got that many people plugging in a car every night. How's this going to work? In
Exactly.
already an area where, people have to put their dishwashers in Sabbath mode and save energy.
California's already got a stressed grid system, because
Agreed.
just because of heat alone.
Agreed.
This
So
summer,
it's
this
not,
summer they had to send out a text message to use the emergency text messaging system to send out a text message to tell everybody turn off all electric that you possibly can because the grid's overloaded. And
yeah,
it worked, and I'm like, holy crap. What are they going to do when there's cars on the road that all need to have electric?
yeah. And it's a reasonable question. I mean, listen, I'm not an anti, you know, energy, green energy person. Honestly, I just bought a brand new Toyota Tundra yesterday because I could not find a Ford Lightning anywhere in this country. I was going to fly anywhere to find one because me and my wife ran the numbers and said, look, we're paying $400 a month for this Dodge Ram. It gets 12 miles a gallon. It's costing us $800 to $900 a month in gas. If we buy a $60,000 to $65,000 Ford Lightning, we're still going to save money because of the no fuel costs. The problem is when I went out and did research, first of all, there's some really great incentives right now. You can get a $7,500 tax credit for buying a fully electric truck. You can get up to a $4,000, I believe, tax credit at your house for the charging station. The problem is the price is so astronomically skyrocketed at this point because just like anything new technology, remember when plasma TVs came out? They were $5,000, and then
Yeah.
they turned into $600, TVs in a matter of a couple years.
And the gas leaked out of them. They were junk in the long run,
Absolutely,
and then the
absolutely.
LED TVs. So we saw in that industry, and using the TVs as an example, we saw, innovation and change. Everybody jumped on it. It was really expensive. And then a better alternative came out of it
Mhm.
that was more reliable
Absolutely,
and just as good.
absolutely. Well, and I look at it just like in our industry. I've seen multiple refrigerant changes in my career from 22, R12, 134A, and now to R600. I've been working on R600s. I love them. I love them. They don't have oil migration issues. They're they're failing. And as much as that's bad for the consumer, that's job security for us guys. I mean,
Right.
you can say whatever you want, but that they're basically concreting the next 10 years are going to be great by
Yep.
building those products. So,
Alex said that Lightning is 80K sticker price.
yep.
And
So
I watched Jay Leno's Garage just last week, and he had somebody from the Lightning team from Ford come on, and he said right on that show just last week that they're behind by 2 years. They've got Lightnings already sold and committed. So you're not even going to be able to go and buy a Lightning and have it for at least 2 years
that's
right now.
wild. Yeah.
And
That's it.
Chevy's coming out in the spring with their new Silverado, and it is
Yeah.
badass. If you haven't looked at it, go to their website and check it out. It is really badass. And you're going to pay average 75k for that,
Hmm.
for a well loaded one, that
Yeah.
has the extended range and everything like that. So um when let's talk about that, you guys that are watching. um tell us what you would average spend, say, in a week, let's do a month. What would you average spend on fuel right now per month for your business, and how many miles per week would you say you drive on your
I'm
service
curious.
vehicles?
I'm curious on these answers because gas prices are so high in certain areas.
Yeah,
These guys out in
plug them in there.
California,
How many miles per week do you drive, and how much fuel spend do you spend per service vehicle on a weekly basis? Let's just do weekly. Pop it in the comments. Do that for us, please. I'm just curious to see what these numbers would be, because like my son-in-law has a Model Y Tesla. It's almost 2 years old, and Justin and I were talking about this right before we got on the live. And he comes to my house and he charges it, and I've got a 220 outlet for him to charge it a little faster, because the 110 just won't work. I mean, it just takes forever for that car to charge. And the 220 allows it to charge, relatively faster. I'd say it's not, definitely not a supercharger, but it's a medium charge. So it still takes him a long time. I'm talking like hours to charge that car. It takes, 5-6 hours on a 220 outlet to charge that car, not even to 100%. Maybe that only gets him to like 80 or 90% from 20%.
yeah,
So that only gets him 60% of his battery capacity after 4 or 5 hours. And yeah, that's fine. You can charge your cars overnight. you know, your service vehicles overnight. But in the move to this, say in another 10 years, we're going to see a huge shift in our I don't even know how to say it. A huge shift in our thinking, and what's available, actually what's available as a service vehicle. I think in
yeah.
another 10 years, everything's going to be electric. That you need a new service vehicle and you're looking for something brand new, it's going to be electric, period.
So I think there's going to be a period of time where, like you said, in certain areas where they outlaw new production of gasoline, you're
Hmm.
going to get flooded with used cars, and the price is going to plummet on them to where you're going to be able to find really affordable options in a gasoline. But the question is this: supply and demand goes both ways.
Right.
If the US isn't buying oil at the rate that it's buying it, the price should go up significantly.
Yeah, so
So,
I mean, 10 years from now, look at our inflation right now, just what it's been in the past 2 years.
yeah,
Our gas prices have gone up so much just in the past 2 years. Imagine what it's going to be in 10 years. I mean, we're,
yeah.
we're going to be looking at some massive gas prices in 10 years.
Well, well, and you would think, if you don't have as many gasoline vehicles, the demand's not as high, right? So the reason gas prices went up is because demand's so high and production was down, right?
Right.
But I think when you switch infrastructure wise, and this is just the investment banker in me talking, the United States imports more domestic oil than any country in the world. If they if they cut those numbers dramatically, those countries that they're importing oil from are going to want them to pay on that smaller amount at a much higher rate, in my opinion. It's going to inflate the cost by doing so. And I'm sure the government's going to find a way to add, you know, taxes on the fuel to try to incentivize you to buy electric at some point. I could see that where they try to levy you that way as well. So it's going to be kind of interesting how it plays out. It could go a million ways. I mean, truthfully, uh, the funny that I saw a guy recently driving a Tesla. He's got a little generator in the back. Have you seen
Yeah,
that?
I've seen that.
And he goes
Oh,
to
and
get
he's got to
gas
have a
to
gas
fill up
can
the
to fill the
generator.
generator.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about myself, I'm forgetful sometimes. Like, dude, if I forget to plug my truck in the night before, my day's shot. The
Yep.
next day. Like, that's
My
gonna be,
this is no lie. I'm gonna bring my son-in-law with his Model Y Tesla into this. He had to go to Michigan about a week and a half ago. He had to go to Michigan for a wedding in his family, and he lives an hour and a half south of me, and I'm an hour south of Chicago. So he had it all planned that they're going to come to my house at noon, and they had a set time that they were going to leave at 2 in the afternoon, and that was their window. And I'm like, why are you guys coming so early? It's a weekday and I have to work. You're bringing my grandkids. Now, obviously, I'm going to want to spend time with my grandbaby. And
right.
so my daughter and him get here, and I'm talking to my daughter. I'm like, he planned for 2 hours of charging here, didn't he? And she smiled and said, yep, that was the whole thing. He used me as a jump point so that he could charge for 2 hours so that they could get to their destination. And he had 2 more charging trips or charging stops planned on his trip. One for like an 8-minute charge, and another one for a 12-minute charge. And he had it all planned out on his phone. It was like insane. And it's all because my daughter has range anxiety. So now we've got range anxiety coming into play,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
he knows that he can make it to his destination because the accuracy of the app on his phone, the battery life and all that stuff, it tells him. And he says it's extremely accurate. And
Yeah.
he knows how much battery life he's got to get to a destination. But he has to find a supercharger or some way to charge it near there. So he'll have to drive out of his way in order to get to a charger sometimes. And the charger infrastructure is still growing. So in some places, they're not close to where your destination is. So as we start seeing service vehicles come into play that are electric, you may have to go quite a ways out of your way, especially in a rural area, just to find a charger if you need it. Because if you're looking at, say it's an average, the average electric vehicle gets anywhere from 250 to 280 miles on a full charge. And obviously, city driving and having your air conditioner on, all that stuff is going to affect some things. So for roundabout numbers, let's do a conservative. Say it's 260 miles. If you're driving that many miles in one day in that service vehicle, is it going to last you all day? Just like the fuel would. You're going to have to stop for gas here and there throughout your day and put more gas in because you're just going to eat it up. And city driving versus rural driving could change all that. But when you're looking at the charging costs are definitely cheaper than fuel. Absolutely cheaper. There's no question about it. But the vehicles cost more now. So, and are those government tax breaks? We were talking about this before the live stream started. What are those tax breaks that you can get now for an electric vehicle? And once the market is more flooded with them and it's being more accepted and people start purchasing more of these, is that government incentive going to go away? Of course it will. There's no incentive for the government to do it. They've already got people on that trend, which is the whole reason that they actually give these incentives right now. So they want you to like go into their mindset and purchase these vehicles.
Well, there's probably some younger guys in the groups that are in the group that doesn't remember this, but you remember Cash for Cars, remember? And
Oh
they
yeah.
did Cash for Appliances at the same time. What they were doing is they were trying to get rid of all those old appliances that lasted forever
Mm-hmm.
so they could replace them with Energy Star appliances. Okay. Anybody in our industry knows the individual consumer will never notice an iota difference on their energy bill because they have Energy Star appliances. The idea that 10 million people use it, it saves energy and it's better for the environment, right? Here's the biggest concern that I see. And I'm looking at this from, I'm trying to find market trends on stock options and follow that. I got a lot of money in Tesla right now, for instance. I think they're going to be an innovator and leader in the market, and they've just partnered with Panasonic to where Panasonic's building all their batteries going forward. They're investing $8 billion over the next 2 years to build batteries in the Midwest. I think it's going to be huge, especially Panasonic. They're definitely an early adopter. But if you look at something that hadn't been talked about is what happens when all these electric cars break, because there's not very many qualified individuals that are going to be able to work on them. You have all these car guys that have been working on cars for their whole life, right? They have now become useless because
Oh
they're not
yeah.
going to know how to work on a electric motor. You're going to have guys that have electricians. Actually, I would think would be the easiest person to call and say, hey man, can you come test this or test that? Like you're at your 70-year-old father-in-law, like I have, who I can drop my car off and he can fix anything. He's now useless. He
Well,
has
these
no
things are
experience.
they're
So
100% self-diagnosed through the computer system. I mean,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
maybe not 100%, but 99%.
yeah, but as well as I do with any new technology, when you mass produce it, there's going to be unforeseen problems. And
Oh
what
yeah.
happens? What happens when there's not qualified people that work on it? The people that are qualified are going to charge astronomical rates to fix it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Okay.
think I think we're going to see a massive, the automotive trades
Mm-hmm.
and in the repair trades, whether
Yeah,
it's being a mechanic or in the collision side that I came from. Um y- there's been a massive downtrend in availability of technicians in
mm-hmm.
those fields, in the automotive fields industries, and now it's definitely going to get lower, and people have to be very very good technicians
Yeah,
and very highly skilled technicians. They're going to have to actually be programmers. They're going to have to be electrical diagnosticians in order to be able to be in that trade. And all the rest of them are just going to be parts changers.
you're
They're
exactly.
just going to say, okay, the computer says it needs this. All right,
Yeah,
unplug this, plug a new one in, bolt it in, done. Which is no different than a lot of industries, dealing with things.
absolutely. Well, for instance, like, dude, I told you about this before we got on the live a couple days ago. I took my 69 to a mechanic the day that I was dropping it off to a guy that was buying it for $22,000. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna do him a solid. I'm gonna get the oil changed. I'm gonna get a tune-up done. I'm gonna leave him in a great spot. Just had a brand new tranny installed. The mechanic that was working on it at the shop, come to find out, is a 19-year-old kid. He had never worked on a classic car like that didn't have a computer, that didn't tell him how to go through a diagnostic with a plug-in. He put 10 quarts of oil on my 350 motor. It hydrolocked the motor and ruined the rocker arm. It bent a rod and busted the springs in the engine.
Ooh.
The owner actually called and personally apologized to me and said, look, here's the deal. I got a lot of young guys in my shop. They've never worked on this type of motor before, which to me, I find hilarious because it's like the easiest motor in the world to work on,
And
right?
there's no engine no vehicle
So
engine that takes 10 quarts of oil unless
yeah,
it's some
so
kind of big diesel.
exactly like a Duramax. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't even think a Duramax
I
takes
don't
10
think
quarts of
so either.
oil. And so, well, and the thing is, he was very transparent because he could tell that I was understanding because they're gonna take care of it and this and that. But um, he tells me, look, the kid thought the tranny dipstick was the oil dipstick because it's not color coded like on the new ones where it's yellow on the tranny dipstick. Now, to me, you should know tranny fluid is red, you know, or pink, and oil is brown. I mean, but you know, at the end of the day, like I just said, look, the owner did the right thing. It is what it is. They're gonna rebuild the motor, but even with that, it just goes to show like that's old technology, right? That guys like us, Mike. I mean, that's the engine that I learned how to work on a car
Yeah,
on.
me too.
It's you got a huge amount. You can sit inside the engine bay. I mean, it's crazy, right? So easy to work on. And you got a 19-year-old kid that it looks like it's from a different planet to him. He'd probably rather work on a, brand new Honda. So that sounds
Well,
awful. But
it's not the mistake that was made.
yeah.
It's how it was resolved, by
Mm-hmm.
the owner of that company. He took ownership of the mistake that his employee made. He stepped up. He's taking care of you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it cost you a sale of your vehicle, and it's
Yeah.
costing you time now. That you
Yep.
don't have that vehicle, and you can't sell it in the stage that it's in.
Absolutely.
Like you want. So, I mean, it's costing you a lot. You know, besides that.
Well, and the thing is I after my initial shock of it, and when he called me back, I said, "Look, man, I'm not going to give you a hard time when I ask people to give me the same grace you're asking me to give you. And I don't get it a lot of times. Me as a business owner in the service industry, I understand. I said the fact that you called me personally and are trying to make this right, I'll bring my cars back to you every time. Because the
Yeah.
truth of the matter is, I want I would rather somebody that makes mistakes but are honest with me so I can trust them moving forward than somebody who I think might be a super tech, but I got to constantly be watching and make sure he's not screwing me. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Exactly.
So um, you know, it's just one of those things. I mean, at
If
the
you
end of the
can't
day, I was my
trust
wife
the guy
taught
to
me.
be honest about his mistakes, how can you trust him to be honest about trying to fix that mistake? You know,
Absolutely,
that's
because
that's where it goes.
that's not an easy conversation. And
No.
the fact that he was so transparent with me about exactly what the kid did told me what kind of person he was without telling me.
Yeah.
Because as business owners, I do that as a business practice. When we really screw up, I'm transparent as heck with them because I realize after doing this for 25 years, that transparency 99% of the time, unless you have a world class jerk off, uh, those people really respect you for stepping up. I had a guy tell me one time not too long ago. He said, when you make a mistake like this and then you come to my house and do everything you can to make up for it, that's how you win a customer for life. It's not when it goes right.
Right. Jeremy's got a question from when we were talking about the electric vehicles. Who's going to pay for the road repairs? Part of the price of a gallon of gas is tax for the roads. Well, Jeremy, that's an easy one to answer because now you're going to be charged a mileage tax in the future. They're already doing this in Seattle, and they've been testing it there for, well, probably a couple years now. Um, Here in Illinois, our governor,
Same tax.
God bless his heart, hate the guy, can't stand this guy, and he's probably going to get in office another term, but he's wanting to do the same thing here because number one, people aren't driving as much as they were, and through COVID, nobody was driving, so there
Yeah.
was no tax for the roads and our infrastructure that they were getting money for,
Yeah.
plus all the money that they were hemorrhaging over everything else to do with COVID, on a state basis. So if there's no money coming in and they're hemorrhaging all this money coming out, they're going to make up for it. And that's going to be on a mileage tax. And all your mileage is going to have to be reported, and you're going to pay taxes on that.
We're not going to have to worry about the federal government figuring out a way to tax us. I promise you that. I mean, Mike and I are both from Chicago. Literally, Chicago passed what's called a rain tax. I mean, you talk about a bureaucratic nightmare of a state. It doesn't get any worse. They have more elected officials in the state of Illinois than they do in the state of California.
Yeah.
Because their area that they represent, their constituents, is so small. That's why it's always been known as one of the most crooked and corrupt cities in America.
It's usually it's here in Illinois, it's mostly the northern part of the state that's the worst.
Yeah.
You start going south, in more mid state and below, it's a completely different state. They're not even close to each other in their views of anything.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
Like Alex says, how many times are we going to be taxed on the money we make? This is ridiculous. Alex, they're going to find a way to tax you on the money you make and the money you spend, and then everything in between.
This is a great this is a great jumping off point of what we also were talking about is look, when you're running and building a business, I'm at a point where, I go to my CPA 2 times a year typically. And what I do that for is to check to see where I'm at revenue wise and profit wise, so I can take certain actions to minimize my tax liabilities. I'll just put it that way. And you get to a point where I'm at, like last year, I was going to owe $50,000 in taxes, or I could go out and buy a couple service trucks for my company, right? It's either I pay it to the IRS or I buy assets for my business, plain and simple. And I just bought this new Toyota Tundra. Okay, we're in the same spot, and we're coming up on November. It's hard to find a vehicle right now, so I started doing it earlier this year because I realized what I was running into. I need to make this purchase before the end of the year, so I can make this a tax deduction for my business. And at the end of the day, this truck is paying for itself at this point, because it's either I write Uncle Sam a $50,000 check, or I buy myself a vehicle. And I think we can all agree, anybody in this situation, you're always going to buy the asset.
There's always ways to find out where you can keep that money in your business.
Yeah.
And out of the government's pocket.
Absolutely. You can write off depreciation on the vehicle. You can write off the whole vehicle the first year. Mileage, there's certain ways you can do it depending on how your business is structured. And
obviously things vary state to state.
Absolutely. And the understanding tax codes in our line of work, if you're running a business and you don't have a CPA or tax professional, good Lord, please reach out to somebody, because they are taking your money without you even knowing it. I mean,
it's too complicated for you to figure out on your own.
Absolutely.
That's not your business.
Yeah, it's not like filing your taxes with a W-2 employee. That's what people always turn to. And then when they start a business, they're like, oh, I can handle this. Yeah, but you don't know all the tax deductions that are allowable. I mean, there's actually a tax deduction that's allowable called the Augusta rule. Okay. You can actually rent your own house out to you yourself or your business a certain amount of days per year, because in Augusta, Georgia, during the Masters, they had a situation where people were renting their homes out, and the federal government was making people file taxes on 4 or 5 days of rental. So they changed the law and said, look, this is ridiculous. Somebody shouldn't have to file tax returns on a business for renting out their house 4 or 5 days. So the federal government said you can rent your house out to 4 or 5 days, up to $1,000 a day per day, right? Without having to file, business tax returns or anything. When they allow someone in that situation to do it, that means they're giving all of us the opportunity, because what they do for one, they have to do for all. That's
Right.
how the tax codes work. So in our industry, whenever I host a Christmas party, I rent my house out to myself at $1,000 for a day. It's allowable in my state
That's
based on
cheap
my
for your
situation.
mansion.
Hey man, exactly.
I mean, that's
No,
cheap.
dude. I've known nowhere near a mansion. But I'm just saying,
You
like,
got that private
so,
gate that the guards got to let people in at the end of the driveway.
exactly. No, I mean, dude, like, who's gonna know that besides a tax guy that does this every day for a living? Like, he's the one that was like, dude, you wouldn't believe this, but you know, and I brought up, oh, I'm having a Christmas party. He's like, oh, do you know that's tax deductible? I'm like, no, I didn't. How the heck is that tax deductible? So
Yeah.
he explains to me that the whole Augusta rule. I'm like, get out of here, dude. I was like, now I'm gonna have more things at my house. Like, I want to do this anyway. It's good for culture, right? But now
Mhm.
it's got an added benefit. And I'm sorry, when you're dealing with that much money, it matters that much. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
This is
I
stuff that I
I
can
agree
give
with
back
that.
to
What
my.
Alex is commenting right now about, that's one thing that should be taught in high school. There's a lot of things that should be
Absolutely.
taught in high school. Money management is
Absolutely.
not what's taught in high school. They do
Absolutely.
not. Personal finances, business finances, all that should be taught in high school.
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff should actually start being taught in middle school.
Yeah.
I
My
think kids would come out so much smarter and be so much better off by the time they're 20 if
yeah.
they started teaching them this stuff young.
Yeah. My wife and I have made our boys have businesses since they were like 10 years old. My son had a poop scooping business where he was poop scooping yards for $20 a week. And this kid, yeah, I had to be impressed by it. By the end of it, by the time he was done, he had his friends poop scoop in the yard and he was splitting it with them. So he's making $10 a week for doing nothing, right? Hey, that's a smart kid, right?
That's
It was
capitalism.
it started out as a punishment for him, but he found a way and worked around it. And that's what I wanted. It was to inspire him to be creative, right? I want to and understand how it works to own your own business. And he's also had a credit and debit card since he was, young teenager. We want to teach him, look, knowledge is power when it comes to money. It is. If you know how it works and your credit is everything in life is cheaper when you have good credit. Everything
Oh yeah.
in life is cheaper. I mean, I just got this Toyota Tundra. Our interest rate was 3% on a
That's
brand
good
new
right
car.
now. That's
That's
phenomenal.
incredible right now, right? I remember when they were down to like 0.9 and this and that. And when the guy said 3% at first, I was like, damn, that sucks. But I know where mortgage rates are at. I was like, that's a pretty good rate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember
Well, you
back to
need
my,
you need some more tax breaks. I will rent you my house for a few days before the end of the year. You know, 10 grand a day.
yeah, there
We'll
you
call
go.
it all good.
That is a crazy rule. I bring that up as a like jaw dropper to people sometimes. They're like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called the Augusta rule.
All right. Well, we've been on for an hour, so we're going to wrap it up. We'll see you guys next week. Well, you won't. I'll be on with TK next week because we flip flop now. Are you going to be
Oh
on
yeah,
any of
that's
the other grinds between now and then?
I I'm I'm not positive, but the idea's been thrown around that so I'm gonna do every other week on Wednesdays, I believe,
Right.
and then I might come in on some Fridays
Okay.
on Ask Me Anything ones.
All right.
So
Well,
you
we'll see
guys
you
all have
guys.
a great
I
day.
will see all of you next week. And Justin will see you at least once in between, probably, if not in a couple
Absolutely.
weeks. All right.
Everybody stay
Everybody
safe
have a
out there.
great day.